Polling shows the 2022 Senate race in New Hampshire could be a close one. Incumbent Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan is up for re-election. According to the Granite State Poll conducted by the University of New Hampshire, current Republican Governor Chris Sununu is her strongest possible challenger. Polling of the potential race found 45% of likely voters say they would vote for Governor Sununu, with 42% saying they would vote for Senator Hassan. Governor Sununu has not officially joined the race yet, but says he will decide in the next few weeks. For more on this, I want to bring in Dante Scala. He is a professor of political science at the University of New Hampshire. Professor Scala, welcome back to the program. So the last time we spoke, Governor Sununu's popularity seemed to be at a higher point than this polling would suggest. Why might that be?
I think what's happened is that the so-called pandemic effect is starting to wear off. And by that I mean the governor, like a lot of governors around the country, received kind of a rallying effect from their state populations during the pandemic crisis. And I think it was also an endorsement of how well Sununu was handling the public health crisis. But now Sununu is seen more as a potential candidate for another office rather than as the home state governor. And so the now familiar partisan effect is taking place, where Democrats who once approved of the job Sununu was doing now are hearing more and more that he's going to run against Maggie Hassan and treating him accordingly, that is, in a very partisan way. I think also there's some effect that people are just worn out by the pandemic, by things like requesting masks and vaccines and all of that. And the fact that there's no end to it yet, I think has some effect on all kinds of governing officials. So even though Governor Sununu has been careful not to go too far with mandates, he's still suffering some ill effects.
Well, the governor says that his decision on a possible Senate run is imminent. What would he bring to the race if he were to run?
He brings something no other Republican does, which is terrific name ID. Everyone's very familiar with Governor Sununu at this point after serving as long as he has as the governor. And he also brings, as the governor, kind of this residual popularity. I think it's a lot easier to run as a governor for a U.S. senator as opposed to being an incumbent senator, because you don't have that association with Washington, D.C. I mean, the governor has been able to say for the past several years, we do things better here in New Hampshire than they do down in Washington, D.C. Those politicians down there, they don't know what we know. And so he's got that advantage, which is especially strong in a midterm election where Senator Hassan represents the party in power, right? The incumbent party. And right now, President Joe Biden's not popular in New Hampshire, and not coincidentally, neither is Maggie Hassan.
Well, what are some of the signature issues defining Senator Hassan's Senate career to date?
It's hard to point to any one thing. I think we're seeing now that in advertisements that Hassan is trying to present herself in familiar ways as a protector of veterans, for example, someone who supports free enterprise in the Granite State. But as a first-term senator, she's at her most vulnerable. That is, she's not especially well-defined. And I think that a lot of voters tend to think, well, she's in D.C., she's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And so whereas Governor Sununu has been front and center for the past couple years, especially with the pandemic crisis, so she's got a lot of work to do to really sharpen her identity to New Hampshire voters and present herself as something other than a generic Democrat, because right now, a generic Democrat, no matter who it is, would have a difficult time being reelected in New Hampshire.
So given all of that, what can you tell us, Professor, about resources and campaign ground game? Who do you see as having any advantage?
I think resources are going to be no problem in a Hassan-Sununu matchup. In fact, probably the reverse. I think you can predict very clearly that voters will be sick and tired of hearing about Sununu and Hassan in a year's time, given the amount of resources that they'll be able to plow into a race. Whether they're watching Boston television or New Hampshire television, there'll be plenty of ads. Democrats typically have a strong ground game here in the state. They do a lot of work going door to door, and I presume that if COVID continues to recede, we'll see more of that next year. But of course, the difficulty is enthusiasm. Democrats were very enthusiastic to get Donald Trump out of office in 2020. Will they be as enthusiastic to keep one of their own in office? That's the trick.
Right, and it's a question they're asking in other states, by the way, as well. All right, Professor Dante Scala, Professor, thank you very much.
You're welcome.